portfolio.
Sure.
Obviously, we'd like it to be more. And then we discussed that we made some investments that reduced what that money would come in as. So I want to see, when those returns are going to happen for those investments. So I just would share with you that's part of this, but I'm good with the explanation. So thank you.
I have a question. To follow up on some of the discussion we had at the last meeting, I'm looking at page 5 with the growth in salaries and benefits.
Correct.
Both of those numbers, as well as the purchase services, they seem to jump a lot more than I would have expected based on past history between the original budget and the amended budget. And I'm hoping that you can shed some light on why we saw such a big jump from the original to the amended and what we can learn from that as we prepare to go into budgeting for this year.
Yep, no problem. So the biggest jump, obviously, on this amendment is what you see there on page 5 is your benefits section. Jumped about $7.6 million. So the vast majority of that, about $5.1 million of that, I tried to explain in the last meeting. The state is, again, sending us one-time dollars for the retirement system. And in the old days, what the state did is if they wanted to shovel money over to the retirement system, they simply did that. Now they run it through our books, and so they send it to us as revenue, and then they send us an invoice for the exact same amount. So what it does is grosses up our income statement. So for this year alone, the addition in that retirement revenue is $5.1 million. So when Mr. Conley says we've added $10 million, half of that right off the bat is this just passed through. It just hits our books and goes away. We're invoiced for it. We have to pay it within 7 days, I think. So that's a large portion of it.
And why do they do that, Mike? Just out of curiosity, like what's their rationale for that?
The rationale is that they've interpreted an accounting standard that makes it as though it's ours. And so they changed that about 10 years ago. They started funneling money through the district. I'll tell you that it's politically a way to make it look like they give the schools more money than what they actually do. But that's the reason that they do it that way, is they've interpreted an accounting standard. That's how it needs to be handled. The unfortunate part is the district, as a member of the state retirement system, actually has no responsibility for that balance. But it's the same argument that Mr. Conley will make, that on our balance sheet, we now have this really large unfunded liability that really isn't even the district's, but that's how they've managed to put it in there.
I think that's at 80 million currently.
It's
Something like that.
close to 100,
Now
wasn't
it's
it?
close to 100, yeah.
Right.
And so if I
But
could,
But by statute, that's the state's and not ours, but that doesn't seem to weigh.
well, it seems we didn't have it originally, and then all of a sudden we got it. So what they did is took it off their books at the state and gave it to us, is how, if I recall, when that came in, we're like, oh, by the way, we're going to show this liability transfer to Brighton schools, even though it's a state liability. So they got it off their books, and we had a system here in the early days of trouble. It was called a marker system. And it reminds me of the same system that the state was using when they transferred that to us and made it look like our liability. It was a
We did it
marker.
to every school.
They did. It wasn't just us. Good
Yeah,
point.
right. It's
Yeah, it was every school in the state.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't like we were singled out. Good, well put. So, but that's what it is. And it's really strange, and it's hard to see that number and not retain that, isn't it? So.
If we go back to the question on the salaries, why are we off by 8% there as well?
Yep. And a good half of that was additional growth in the shared time program. So we did have additional staff that were included in order to educate all the additional shared time students that we have.
Okay.
I have a comment on that, Alicia, if it's okay, but it didn't show the income.
Yeah, that's elsewhere.
Right. It was an expense without showing the income from it, correct?
Right.
All right. It was an investment.
Right.
Okay.
It's like a lost leader.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was discussed.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the approval of the budget amendment signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item H, which is what was item D for future action, the additional high school flooring. Bill, you want to
Sure.
lead off with this?
The reason why we're doing that, and I think John Thompson's probably sent some pictures if he hasn't, I think he's here. This is for the flooring. We're pretty much through the whole flooring program at the high school once this summer ends. But this is in the old gymnasium across from the cafeteria, the flooring in there, as well as in the training room. And the reason why we're moving it forward is because per the bond committee meeting, the flooring contractor would like to order his material, and he would like to include this in his order. So when he's in here this summer replacing it, he can go ahead and do it all at one time instead of coming back and making 2 trips. So this is, it's flooring that comes in from Germany. And again, we'd like to get it ordered placed, and they said the sooner we could pass it and get the okay for it, the sooner they could get it on order, which would certainly help our schedule.
So just out of curiosity, why does it come from Germany? I don't know anything about the
That's-
uniqueness of the floor.
Good question, Andy. I don't know. That's apparently where a lot of the stuff is manufactured, this rubber type of flooring, I guess. And that's where we've gotten the rest of where our flooring originally came from, that over the 3-year period that we've been replacing. And so this is just added to that order in order where we won't get the same dye lots, but it'll be close enough to the color because nothing will match up to it. So.
Yeah, and if I may add, so yeah, I mean, in the same contractor is going to be installing that. It's the phase 2 of the high school flooring, the same rubberized flooring that Bill mentioned. And so this portion was not in apparently the original scope when it was put out to bid. Somehow it got missed. And so this was for future action. So that's why there isn't the specific item, but it's $83,000 that's going to be added on for the additional scope of flooring that will be added, and the same contractor will be doing it. Is that right?
Yeah, it'll be the contractor that's doing the flooring at the cafeteria flooring at Malpe.
Right.
Can I ask what the contract is currently? So what do we, like, is 83,000 a small percentage of what we're already paying them, or is it?
The total contract? I don't know, Mike, what's the total contract worth?
I'd say Integrity's portion over at Alpi is about equal, about
Okay.
80,000.
Has this gone through the bond committee then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, the bond committee supports it.
Yeah.
Right. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed,
Second.
supported by Mr. Trombley. And just for clarification, it's the motion to approve the completion of this flooring at the
Quoted
quoted.
track area in the training room at the high school.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to the for future action portion of our agenda. Item A, Brighton Community Ed Vehicle Accessibility Plan.
I can take this. So I had a chance to talk to Mr. Thompson from Community Education about this. This is an annual plan. It's unchanged. This is the same plan from the previous year. It must be updated by the board each year. And on page 34 through 40 of your packet is that plan. Again, it's unchanged from last year. It has to do with MDOT for Senior Center Vehicle Accessibility Plan, which is a requirement from MDOT. And this is for future action. They're looking for at the next meeting for the board to approve this.
Any questions? No? All right. That moves us to item B, Truant Policies 3105, 3116, and 3304. Ms. Reed? Or Mr.
I don't know
Scaling?
if Mr. Scaling wants to take it first.
I can do 31.
Okay.
3116 was a mid-year update provided by Troon, which really just adds a section to the acceptable use policy that specifically speaks to use of personal electronic devices during state testing. And that language there under the new letter D is there with a few optional language options for that particular section. Those were vetted through the principals for those selected options, and that's what is for review.
And then for the other policies, starting with 3105, based on some discussion that we had here at the board table over a couple of meetings regarding badges, background checks, and access to buildings, the policy committee drafted the changes that you see highlighted in yellow that would categorize different groups of visitors and situations when we expect folks to sign in and present ID in order to access the building, and what the background check standards are for folks that are going to have regular access to the building or receive badges to buildings. And we asked for your support for those changes. The other policy that we worked on was 3304 with respect to the use of district property. The policy originally just said that the use of district property would be approved by the superintendent, but we all know that in practice, it's not our superintendent that is directly approving every use. So this policy was updated to acknowledge that the director of community education and the district director for K through 12 athletics would also be able to approve use of facilities. And those were all of these changes for all three policies were reviewed by the policy committee. And at our last meeting, we recommended that they be brought to the board table for discussion and review.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions? All right, that moves us on to item C, grounds maintenance agreement. Mr. Ingleter?
We did put the grounds maintenance agreement out to bid. Put it out. We did have a bid opening on March 31st. We did put a bid tab in here for you as well as the RFP that we put out. We are looking for approval at the next meeting to move forward with an agreement with Northland Services, who is our current vendor.
Any questions?
I noticed we only got 2 bids.
Correct.
Why?
That's a question I can't answer. We put it out to bid.
How was it put out to bid, Mike? Just curious.
We put RFP out on our website as well as we post the public notice in the paper.
So when we solicit bids, it goes in the newspaper, public notice in the newspaper, and then it's on our district website?
That's correct.
And where on our district website? I'm not familiar with where bids go out on our district
It's
website.
under the business service section. There's a bids and RFP section that's on there.
Do
So-
people subscribe to it, or is there you have
It's just a
to like
link.
check every day to see if a bid gets loaded?
Yeah, but that's why we put it out as a public notice.
So this is worth almost 800 some odd $1,000 over 3 years, right?
Correct.
So you make no phone calls to any of the lawn mowing companies around. No one bothers to go and see them and solicit them, tell them we have an RFP coming out. No one bothers to do any legwork other than you put it on our website and you put the RFP in a newspaper ad, and that's it.
That's correct. We put it out as a public notice.
And that's why we have 2 bids, most likely. Wouldn't you agree? Only because I bring this up when in the construction trades, typically if you're going to put a package out for bid, you try to get some interest. You call the different subcontractors that you know do that type of work. You ask them if they'd like to bid it. You tell them when it's coming out, see if it'll fit in their schedule, those kinds of things. But nobody does that here?
We did not do that. We put it out as a public notice. That's where a lot of the services and associations pick that up and put it out to their members. So that's why we put it out as a public notice.
So what other associations then carried it?
I don't know that. I put it out as public notice. I let them pick it up.
But you don't know if they picked it up or not?
No, I have no idea.
I mean,
Okay.
one of the largest lawn service businesses in the United States is like 5 miles south of us, Todd's. I think everyone's familiar with Todd's. They're a massive, massive operation. We have Beauchamp's, which I think is sold recently to a different company, but there's a lot of really, really large lawn service businesses in our area. And it just seems that, you know, to Bill's point, with an award that's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, we would be, as a collective district, motivated to solicit competitive bids from multiple businesses. You know, it's not like this is $800. This is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Scott, if you could come up to the podium so everybody could hear you. Scott is our operations director, for anybody
So-
that doesn't know.
What Mike failed to tell you is that Northland doesn't do just lawn cutting. They stripe lacrosse fields, they stripe the baseball fields, they put up tennis nets, they take care of the tennis courts. They do all this extra work, and Beauchamp's, they came out and bid it, and Beauchamp said, you know why the price was so high? Beauchamp said, you know, I'll have to talk to my guys, we don't even know how to stripe a lacrosse field. They didn't even know how to stripe a baseball field. But yet I was surprised we even got a bid from them. So Northland is a specialty company, kind of like Goddard Coating does our tennis courts, or used to do our tennis courts. And Star Trek, there's two companies that do the tracks. They're a specialty company for us. So I just wanted to let you know that.
So
You know,
what,
they
does that
do
stop
more-
us from getting more bids? Is that the idea or what?
There's not, Bill, there's not very many companies that'll bid it. They don't know how to do it.
Okay, but again, my point is,
If we wanted
Do-
just to cut grass, then yes, we can get
well,
tons of bids.
how many other companies out there do that type of work?
We don't know any.
Exactly. Neither do I, neither does any of the people up here at the board, but wouldn't it be worth trying to go out and trying to solicit other companies to bid our work?
We put it out for bid.
Because how
I
long
just
has
wanted to let
Northland
you know
had this
all the stuff that
contract?
They do. So they're,
I really appreciate you, Scott, sharing that. I guess it would be helpful, and we don't need to do it in a board meeting, but I
Right.
would love to talk to you offline. If the specialty side of it is what's really constraining our ability to get multiple bids, it would be really interesting to just, in the spirit of preserving tax dollars
right.
in this district, to split the two, to create two separate scopes of work. One scope of work is for the lawn care, and the second scope of work is for the specialty striping. And at a minimum, market test all the landscaping, lawn care services that are needed in the district. Because we all know, everybody in this room knows, in Livingston County, it ought to be very, very easy to get multiple competitive quotes for,
For grass cutting.
correct.
And it used to be done that way. There used to be two companies that did it. So and again, I think, how long has Northland had this contract?
So the other part, Northland's price that they gave us is the exact same price that they gave us in previous years, except for he added some extra money for the practice facility. So he's not charging us more than what
So,
we've been doing.
and Scott, I don't know Northland from Adam,
Right,
so this isn't like, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
What I care about are the taxpayers.
right.
And just being able to, on the record, let the taxpayers know that we've collectively sought bids
Okay.
to ensure that the money we spend on lawn care in the district
Yep.
has been market tested. That's all.
Can I just ask, historically, have we received, when we put this out in the past, is it typical to only get two or responses? I mean, have they always been the company? I don't know the history of how long we've been using them. I'm just
I think
curious.
Northland's been around at least 5 years, but that predates my history here, so
Okay.
I couldn't tell you what the
Okay.
number of bidders that came in the last round.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All right.
Are the bids closed? They're closed bids?
Well, I mean, the bid opening was on March 31st.
Okay.
We don't
So-
have to accept them.
I was just saying, would it be possible to solicit, to split the bid into two separate scopes of work and solicit?
I mean,
Quotations for
until
them.
we accept it, we can talk about what we want to do, you know, for any of those. I don't know in terms of when does our existing contract expire?
currently expired. We're just looking for the start this season.
Okay, so just, they're operating under the financial terms of the old contract until there's, okay.
Until we settle this.
But again, I have no problem with Northland. They do a good job for what they do. But my point being is, again, back to the taxpayers, they're the ones actually paying for this. And for almost $800,000 contract, you know, it certainly seems we could certainly do better than just getting 2 bids. To me, it's laziness. I look at it as laziness because, again, in the world that I'm in, we go out, we search for companies, we try to get them to bid our work. We let them know when it's coming out. We tell them what it's about. So they start trying to build that hype to get them to quote the work.
Is it an annual contract?
It's a 3-year deal.
3 years, you said, okay. So this locks them in for 3 years and then it comes up again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess the question is, I mean, is that something that we want the administration to look at in terms of separating before we, I mean, I don't know if it's even something where there could be some preliminary information before our next board meeting on whether, because I think probably part of the challenge, I'm sure you're going to get lots of, I shouldn't say that, yeah, I'm sure you're going to get more contractors that are willing to do the grounds
You
maintenance.
think?
Right? I think the challenge is going to be if you're breaking off just having somebody do the striping, is that going to, you know, are you going to have anybody interested in doing any of just the?
Are there
striping?
students that we could employ and give, pay them whatever that balance of the contract is, give students in the district an opportunity to do it at the same rate?
We used to do our own snow plowing and our own lawn mowing.
You're looking at the guy that used to chalk the football field in my high school. So it was.
Roger.
So-
On that, I missed a piece of that, but typically, when the bids go out, what you do is you then qualify the bidder. So you get the bids out and I've been involved in a lot of state purchasing and bids, and I had to fill out the forms and go and meet with executives and tell them how we could do the job or not do the job, right? In this case, this isn't an $800,000 deal. This is 2.4 million, right?
No.
No,
I
it's
think
just
it's-
1 year?
Yeah, for the
It's
3 years.
800 for 3
For the
years.
3 years.
Yeah. All right, so the total is 800. So in the scope of that is just under $1 million contract though. It's very possible though that we have the best company to do it. It could be right now, but at the same time, this qualification process is pretty straightforward when you review people that are bidding. And calling, when we've in the past, people called me to submit the bid. And when I didn't submit a bid one time in Flint, this lady in charge said, you haven't submitted your bid. Well, the qualifications, I didn't have them because I wanted a certain amperage alternator on 20 cars. I couldn't provide it. She said, well, you should have wrote an alternate the day of the bid. So, I mean, there's ways this gets done, right? I mean, and I should have wrote it. I didn't know it said I couldn't match that. I couldn't order that car with that particular part. Couldn't get it. She said that wasn't etched in stone. There's a way to work around that, where I think we would have been the better deal at the end of the day. So in this case, though, I think it's really important that we do look at each one of those opportunities, and we might come up with a better service, or this could be this one that we have could be the best. How many years? Oh, again,
3 years.
how many years have they been with us?
They've been with us for a while. They've,
Scott, how many years? Yeah. So, obviously getting the job done to your satisfaction, right? So that's the first thing. And sometimes you pick a bidder that's even higher because of the quality of work that they do. That's an option you have to pay a percentage higher if you need to. It's not always about low bid, but
In the spirit of putting into practice what we discussed earlier, I think this would be an instance where I'd love to ask that in the record. We are requesting that in the future, we split the scope of work into 2 and solicit, the district actively solicit quotes from more than 2 vendors for each of the services that are being,
I thought we used to have something, and maybe I'm wrong, and Alicia, you may know this from the policy. Don't we require 3 bids or something over a certain amount of dollars?
No, I think we just require a public bid if it's over a certain.
We have to do that for everything, though, public bid. I thought we needed a minimum amount of bidders to,
I don't think.
at a
we
certain
do.
dollar amount.
No.
Okay.
No.
But I wanted to ask for a point of clarification. Are we asking the administration to scrap this bid,
No.
start over with a
No.
new bid and
In the future.
Going forward in the future, when this comes up again in 2.5 years, goes out to bid
I see.
prior to
Okay.
the current contract or soon to be awarded contract expiring.
Okay.
My request is that the district would split the scope of work into two and actively solicit quotes from lawn service providers in Livingston County, the surrounding area, that are qualified, and also solicit quotes for the striping or seek alternative means to get the field striped.
Any objections from the board? From us, we can do that.
No, but I do have, how many bids did we get for the snow plowing?
We're putting the RFP out this week or next week for snow plowing, so our intention is to split that contract.
And is that the same thing, goes out to the website and then,
Correct.
And that's a 3-year deal too, isn't it?
Yeah, we usually do that as a 3-year deal. But we've had those very conversations on that because we've had struggles with the current vendor in getting all buildings done at one time. While it's nice to have one vendor to go back to for responsibility, the snowplow contract, we are looking to split it into zones so that we get more coverage right before school starts rather than starting in the middle of the night and working right through, and some of that snow still coming could still be there. That's some of the issues we've had in the past.
If I could ask, just to build on to the snowplow discussion, for the bond committee, we used to lump in facilities as well as the bond. Are we doing that now, or is our
I
focus
thought it
only
was
the
bond and facilities. I don't
I
know.
thought so too.
Is that,
I mean,
But I would like to see the snowplow RFP come through the bond committee.
great?
Fair enough.
okay. Anything further on the grounds maintenance agreement? All right, that closes the for future action portion of our agenda and moves us into item 10, board reports. Any further committee reports?
I have one on robotics. Go ahead.
Just a quick update from the policy committee. We are meeting the first Monday of every month. And I think the meeting minutes are available both for the board and for the public. The items that we have coming up for the next meeting that we're still working on, we've got some potential updates to 2302 that we're taking a look at. And we are awaiting some recommendations from the administration on a policy around when the district will require written contracts instead of just purchase orders for any services that the district is procuring. And that's I think the only two new items that we have coming up for the next meeting.
one additional was discussion with Dr. Outlaw about tying this, looking for ways to tie the strategic plan into the agenda of
Yes,
our meetings.
thank you. And that's it.
Thank you.
Can, in the bond committee, we continue to meet every Thursday. And as you can see over at Scranton, the new road's going in over there. You can see the clearings being done. We received a schedule for completions on our projects for this summertime. The majority of them should be wrapping up, obviously, before school starts. Some of those items would be the remaining amount of flooring in the cafeteria, the Scranton Road, Access Road should be in. Spencer's parking lot should be taken care of. Hilton's parking lot lighting should be taken care of. And Scranton's parking lot besides the access road should be taken care of this year. So we'll continue through the summer.
Kyle?
Yeah, I got to say a little bit about robotics, but if you open up the book they gave you to this neighborhood and these pictures, where the students, and also on the back page, there's a picture of the completed robot. The students took this challenge on. I don't know if it was, give it 10 working days. I don't know what the exact number of days were to build this machine from scratch. Their engineering team had a design and a blueprint, kind of what they thought they should build. If you open that and look at the complicated robot here, this thing, you know, it has autonomy. It has to run and be coded to run a certain pattern, and then it takes off where there's a driver. and all these different functions. In FIRST Robotics, it's a requirement basically that these things perform. And this machine is very complicated. In the back, and actually the back page gives you a nice shot of it, of what really is going on there with the swerve drives and the technology that's involved. But I'll share with you a little bit of what happened. There was a change in classroom. There was a dyno put in their classroom before we had a real classroom. So we moved them out of their environment and put a dyno in. I think that we heard got used a couple times by a student versus these students having their own home base to go to. Now, the STEAM Center worked out as a kind of a temporary house. They had what they needed. They weren't disadvantaged because they were there, I don't think. But the end result was that they were a little off the mark at the get-go. And I think we placed 32nd out of the field of approximately 40 in the first event, which, as you know, Brighton Schools came off of a state, highly ranking state team the year before, and then with an option to go to the World Finals in Texas the year before, which they declined on. And then the year prior was down to COVID, but in 19 won the World Championship with near 4,035 to maybe 4,000 teams worldwide, where we actually won the championship. It's a very high level academic type of competition. So I don't think that they were, I will say they were me a little, because this move didn't help. How's that? It wasn't necessary because we weren't ready to put them in their permanent home yet. And they did have a home there. And then we moved in this machine that we had state funding for of some manner. And we still haven't completed that, by the way. There's no carbon monoxide detectors in that machine. It doesn't run twice a day. It doesn't do anything, really. And so we own some of it. We own some of this. We do, as a district and as mentors and as people with responsibilities. And they talked about the classroom environment and what would work for them or what wouldn't work for them. Well, technically, not that long ago, we had 4 kids on this team. And then pre-COVID, it grew to 60, 70, 80 students, a real good balance of both male and female. And you just kind of a dream sheet, actually, of what happened. And tonight, you saw the level that those kids are committed. Those students, they're not kids, they're young adults that are committed to what they're doing, and the late hours and working till 2 in the morning, and having the school available to them was a great asset. So in a good way, they had a beautiful facility to work in, a great shop to work in. And they had those mentors were there with them, and they worked and did their absolute best. And to see this new machine run was as a person who's built things experimentally and know what can happen out of the box, with something that's never been tested before. They did an extremely good job in their detail work. So we really needed, I'll say they won the championship for us in what I saw happen because of the support from the school and parents and everything else. But back to this in-between thing, that's where I think we would have maybe campaigned a little better. But the students never got down. They kept working on it. Like I say, I saw a whole group of students working on the old robot while the new one was being built, because they had a backup plan. If they couldn't make the new one go, they were going to run the old robot and be that what it was. But instead, they brought a robot technically that if it had been tested, I think you'd see them in Texas at the World Finals with it. So, but they were sat tonight, and it, that happens with race cars too. They get a test and they never get to see what they're going to develop to, and people can spend years on them. So that's about the robotics. So whatever we can do, I've always helped, and I know that everybody here has as well. We need to help them with that so that they have a solid foundation. And I believe what will happen is just like our engineering classes that we teach, this classroom will develop into 150 students the same way. At a level, very high level, with this core group, if you saw the excitement. And I'll share with you, there was I think a support dog that was right here. The team engineer did presentations in the classroom without the support dog. And then here tonight, she has, it's unbelievable what's happened here for that individual and many others. So I would just remind us all that that's why we're all here, to see that happen, whether it's in the drama class, whether it's in choir, whether it's in robotics, and they get to find their gifts. The other thing I had I can tell you it's really exciting to go watch them. And if you ever get a chance to go, just go visit for an hour or two, and you'll see the kids in the pits and getting busy, and they're working and trying to get out to the floor, and they all work together. And the other thing about the teams, is they work with each other. Competition starts, the competition starts. But prior to that, if you need to borrow something or somebody's broke down and they're having problems, you agree? Like, yeah, his son has been, very active in the FIRST Robotics, and they work together, and then they go out and compete, which again goes back to the spirit of what we all want to do and to see happen for the students. So only good things to say. And anytime you get a chance, like I said, this robot, if you look at this picture, try to build that in 10 days. Anybody? It's amazing. Seriously. And it was a combined effort of some local industry as well that did some cutting of those gears, and all that stuff had to be laid out. Those were all handmade by design. I mean, it can take months or years, like GM can take years sometimes to put stuff together. So that's this rapid, we'll call it rapid prototyping. How's that, Andy? Is that the right term?
Sure is.
Okay. And like I said, we can be proud of them. The Finance Committee, we're going to get a schedule going where we meet a little more often. We got through a couple of, I sent out a sheet. We got through a couple of them. And I'll say that I think it's a good idea that we continue, and then I can bring stuff back. I know that we're meeting some needs, and we talked about custodial. We talked, and we didn't really get to it because we ran out of time. We have to make it a little quicker in our hour that we have to do it, that we'll try to do it in. But I appreciate Dr. Outlaw's support in doing this and helping me with the notes and help me set it up so that we could have some impact. And so look forward to setting the next meeting, and we'll go over some more things, and maybe as a, we can bring it back to you, for the board, for something that will make a difference. And I think that having the knowledge transfer is very important at a level that can be communicated back to the board. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to just mention a program quickly that was piloted this year at Brighton High School, the Lunch and Learn program. I know Mr. Conley has had the ability to attend, Mr. Myers. I've been able to go to a couple of them, and this aligns with our 5-year strategic plan in getting the kids ready and thinking about careers and where they might go. Professionals are coming into the high school and sharing their career experiences, and they do these presentations during all 3 lunch periods on their given date. For this school year, the high school will host a total of 11 speakers. It ranges from law enforcement, computer science, business, medicine, aviation, military, marketing, engineering, and machine trades. The speakers discuss their careers, but also kind of the path and how they got to that place. So it's more than just, this is how I got my job. And in my experience anyway, when I've been there, some of those lessons were have a plan A and a plan B. Don't shy away from adversity, setting a series of small goals to get to the bigger goals, et cetera. So I just wanted to call this out because I think the program highlights the type of opportunity the Brighton area schools can offer the students. And the sessions have been held in our fantastic new learning spaces, the Health Ox and the STEAM Center, which is wonderful. It's also bringing kids down to those spaces that are already at the high school that might not be taking classes there and don't know what's being offered. So it's yet another avenue to open that up so that they realize they have opportunities down there that they may not be aware of. Also, you can have really cool show and tell things. They brought in a police cruiser, some high-end Jeeps, just drove them right through those bay doors, which is huge and super fun for the kids. There are 2 left this year, so I just wanted to mention those. I think the 19th, there's a professor coming from MSU who teaches sports marketing and PR, and then also an environmental presentation, I think environmental engineering at the end of the month. So I just like to acknowledge this because I think the collaboration between the parents, administrations, students, and staff, it just optimizes what we can offer for our community and highlighting what we can give to the kids, not just in the means of classrooms, but thinking about other career goals. Also, I think it would be wonderful if we could replicate something like this for Scranton, maybe not to the same degree, but at a more minimal level in the future. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So, thanks.
Just one other thing, Roger, too, and Ms. Mark probably won't say, but her husband was one of the presenters in this operation one day with these really fancy Jeeps with the big supercharged engines, and then he came back recently, I think, for the auto lab as well. But when he presented, the owner of the company presented, which really got to me, he said, yeah, I was working in this transmission shop as a kid, and I decided now this man is this world-renowned technician, company owner, and his vehicles are all over the world.
We are, all 7 continents.
All
Yeah.
7. It's an amazing story, though. And what he was doing and sharing with the students is a humble beginning hard work. And I think Mr. Storm, everybody here has different, stories about their parents and their upbringing and what they went through to get where they're at. But I think that's the reality they brought to and I got to witness that. And I was like, geez, look at that guy. Good for him, right? And what it took to get there and the hard work and having some help. He didn't say that it didn't take some help. He had a mentor. He had some mentors, and when he was learning about his transmission and how he learned about his transmission was he wanted to fix his own car. So the guy owned the trans shop says, well, come on in, we'll teach you, right? Remember that part of this thing? It was, and so I think that goes back to what the community is about and how to help the youth. So good job on that. And then on one other thing too, don't forget tomorrow night we have our health ocs, 6 to 7, and the health occupations lab at the high school. We can, I think Andy, you're out of town, right?
Yeah, I'll be out of town tomorrow.
Okay.
Are you done?
Yes, sir.
I want to give the rest to Dr.
I
Krebs.
was just gonna say that Scranton is doing an Into the Woods Junior on April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, the weekend before our workshop. You can see how the musical starts and how they get to what we are able to see at the high school. I'm still, what they do at the high school is incredible.
It's neat stuff.
What they can do in Scranton, just, you can see how it starts there, so.
Anyone else? I just have a couple quick items. We have our workshop coming up on the 24th. I wanted to ask the board if there's any flexibility on that date. I have a commitment on the 24th, and again, I don't want to throw everyone's personal life into a tailspin here, but was just curious if there's any flexibility to accommodate a different day that week. And if not, I understand completely, but wanted to just ask. And it's easier to ask in this forum than it is to call 6 different people.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What other days would be good,
Any day.
other than the 24th?
Yeah.
I'm fine with a reschedule. I don't-
Yeah, I don't have a problem rescheduling. I mean, my.
Wednesdays don't work for me.
Wednesdays, what about Tuesday? Tuesday, the 25th, is Tuesday
Tuesday, the
25th?
25th, I have something going on, actually. Thursday would be the only day that would work for me.
Thursday works for me.
So what day is that? The
27th.
27th? Does that work for everybody else?
After the bond committee?
Yeah, well, we have a bond committee meeting at 4:30 to 5:30, right? On the 27th, right? So would
Maybe
the
we do it 6.
That's fine.
6 o'clock?
Yeah.
That's fine, yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I think, I want to try to do it so that everyone's available, because it's important.
I think everyone in, at least on the board knows, like, one of the things I'm super interested in talking about is the digitization of the district. So I'm looking for and is hoping I'd at least be able to be part of that discussion if possible. So,
Well, and
So move it to the 27th, 6 PM.
6 PM?
Okay.
Is that good for everybody? All right.
appreciate it. Thank you.
And I guess while we're on that topic, it was something I had planned to reach out to you anyway, Mr. Storm. I know that's, the digitization and the prospect of introducing that as something for consideration. I mean, you're very versed in the capabilities that might be able to be brought to the table. What I was wondering is, I don't know if you've had, if there's a private contractor consultant that might even be able to provide information or, just to kind of give us some additional information that could be considered as to how, if that were to be something that we as a board were interested in implementing into the district, what would that look like? What the cost parameters may be? I mean, that's something obviously that's very near to your heart. I assume you have more, interaction in the private sector than any of us in that space. I for one would certainly be interested in getting that type of, information for consideration if it's available for the 27th.
Sure. I'll make a note of that, Roger.
Great.
Okay.
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 Anything further on the board reports? All right, that closes the board reports.
I move we go into closed session to investigate alleged violations of Board Policy 2302 by a board member, and to conduct this in a closed session at the request of the board member pursuant to Section 81A of the Open Meetings Act.
Board,
We have a motion by Ms. Reed, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion?
Discussion. Mr. Myers, I'd like you to recuse yourself from this closed session. And I don't want to really reveal and go through the conflict of interest that we know we have. And I would just like you to volunteer to recuse yourself.
Any further discussion?
Are you going to recuse yourself?
It's not, the motion is to go into closed session.
Okay.
So any further discussion on that topic will be in closed session.
Well, I'd like to make a motion now that you recuse yourself from closed session.
Well, that's, the motion on the table is to
Support.
go into closed
I'm
session.
making an amendment to that motion. I mean, for reasons that you know. So I'm making a motion. It has support.
I already have a motion to amend the motion to go into closed session for me to recuse myself from participating in the closed session. Quite frankly, I'm not even sure that's something that's allowed under the open meeting. There's very specific requirements that have to be met for a motion to go into closed session. That certainly is not one of them that's covered by the exceptions to the Open Meetings Act. So
Are you sure?
on that basis alone, I would oppose that.
Are
It's
you
certainly something we can talk about in closed session, but not as an exception to the Open Meetings Act. So I will oppose it, but we have a motion that's been supported.
Discussion?
Yeah, further discussion.
So one of the things that I was just, I've often wondered before this particular agenda item has come up, Roger, and I've shared it with a number of board members. We've talked about it in the policy committee meeting, is, as a new member of the school board who for years sat, out in the public, it's been eye-opening to me how much dialogue we have in closed session. There's an enormous amount of discussion and meeting material that we discuss as a board in closed session. And I just at times wonder if the public realizes how much board activity happens behind closed doors that's kept from the public. Not just this particular agenda item, but other agenda items that are near and dear to my heart, many of the folks that are in the public, including those that are online. Teachers, I've been approached by teachers in this district, and I really appreciate the teachers who've reached out to me and my family. Are there ways that we as a board could work to build more transparency into some of the subjects that we discuss in closed session without compromising the integrity of what the closed session is intended to do? In other words, are there ways for us to inform the public on what we are meeting about without compromising the law, right? To do it within the bounds of the law, but in the spirit of trying to err on the side of being transparent with the public and sharing and updating the public on, the subjects that we're meeting to discuss without naming individuals and compromising any confidentiality that may be involved. So it's a question for the board and for you that I wanted to just broach.
Sure, and I guess, so my answer would be, it depends on what the topic of the closed session is. There are circumstances where we have to go into closed session. We can discuss our position. That's then conveyed to the administration, which then is carried out. Maybe the best example of that is the negotiation of the collective bargaining agreements, right? We go into closed session and we get feedback from administration. We give the administration kind of our consensus of where we are from a negotiation strategy, and then the administration takes that forward. We don't ever disclose that, publicly, as to what we as a board decided would be our negotiation strategy, whether it's financial terms or non-economic terms. So that'd be a good example where that just wouldn't be something we would do for obvious reasons. There are other instances where, whether it's the safety protocols, that's, a specific exemption to the Open Meetings Act that, for obvious reasons, we meet with and we can get updates regarding our security protocols that we don't want the bad guys to know by disclosing that all in public. But on the other hand, there can be instances where we will have a closed session, we will talk about it, and then we will come out and disclose we won't necessarily disclose what we debated in closed session, but we will disclose what our pronouncement will be as a result of what was in closed session. And probably the best example of that is the superintendent's evaluation. The superintendent under the statute can request the deliberation in closed session. We do that, and then we collaboratively decide what the ultimate highly effective, and that's when we make that announcement to So it just, it depends, I guess is the best answer. And those are three
I
examples.
would, just,
If I could,
go ahead.
I think I wanted to add on to that because there are limited reasons that we can have those discussions in closed session, but we as a board control whether we go into closed session. We have the ability to go into closed session to discuss security matters. We could choose to have that out here in public if we wanted to expose all of the details of our security plan to anybody that wanted to download that YouTube video. We each vote to go into closed session. We could each vote not to if there was a particular topic that you thought needed to be carried out here at the board table. But we always have to come back to this board table to take action. We are not permitted to take action in closed session. And to my knowledge, that's not what we are doing. We are taking our action at the board table. Even with the examples that Mr. Myers raised, think about our strategy sessions for collective bargaining. We give the administration guidance on what we want that strategy to be, but we are required to vote on whether we accept that new contract, those negotiated terms here at the board table. And we often carry out some of the same discussions here as we support or reject what has been proposed when we actually come to vote on it. So I don't think we are hiding anything from the public. I also think there are situations like this one and like the superintendent's evaluation where the parties involved have a legal right to request a closed session and they exercise that. And we can either choose to not discuss the subject or we can choose to honor the request from the parties involved and go into closed session. I don't know that we would have any, I wouldn't feel like I had any other way to conduct the superintendent's evaluation than to do it in closed session if that's what his request is. And we as a board are required to conduct the superintendent's evaluation. So I think we do a good job of coming back to the board table to vote on things and to share what we each individually feel about a particular subject and topic that the board is going to vote on. And I would not want the public to get the impression that we are going behind closed doors to make decisions that are then hidden from them.
So regarding not taking action in closed session, one item that, I am curious when we talk about not taking action in a closed session, I recall recently that the district has employed a former FBI forensic investigator. And I'm just wondering, was that action taken in a public forum or was that action taken behind closed doors?
I'm not at liberty to discuss what was discussed
Was that
in a
action
closed
taken,
session.
was that action taken in a public forum or was that action taken behind closed doors?
I would say, Mr. Storm, that
I haven't mentioned any person's name. I haven't mentioned the situation. I just wondering, because we just discussed that no action's taken behind closed doors.
not every action that our administration takes requires the board to vote.
Okay, all right.
So, Roger, if I might, so the motion is a friendly motion to ask you to remove yourself from this closed session in this proceeding. It has no ill intent or to anything else towards you. This is what I believe to be the person who called the closed session business of this board. And so if it comes up, this is where in the discussion phase of my motion, right? Is that where we're at? The motion?
We're in the discussion phase of your motion to amend
Okay.
for me to be disqualified from participating in the closed session.
I would say
as
that you,
amendment to the motion to go into closed session.
I would say a volunteer.
If I could just
Yes, sir.
briefly just say one thing, it's just because we had the discussion of recusal for conflict of interest recently, and had a chance to hear from our attorney on that. As far as a recusal, unless there is a specific financial, let's say hypothetically, you were going to vote on something where you had a family member who was going to benefit, from a contract. That's the only thing where you can mandate recusal, according to our legal guidance. in that guidance that was given to the board, it comes back to the individual. So I'm not sure that the board has the rights to mandate that a board member does not have a voice within the board.
Has any
And-
board member recently recused themselves from closed session? Dr. Outlaw?
Yes, we did, and I'm not going to discuss that, but yes, and then we had others that did not. And it was their
Correct.
choice. Both had a professional choice to make.
And it was done in closed session, and that's really good, gets back to the point, because first of all, I don't even know what conflict of interest you're referring to. So if we're gonna have that discussion in open session, it just completely undermines the whole idea of having a closed session. That's why if there's, I will give you the opportunity to make your argument as to why I should be disqualified for a conflict, but it has to be in the closed session.
Okay. And then if we determine that's the case, we can't vote in closed session, you'd have to do it on your position.
Come back out and.
I think in all fairness for yourself, I think that's fair. Thank you.
So are you?
I'm going to
are
remove
you-
that motion.
You're withdrawing the motion to
We
amend.
can't vote on it because that superintendent said it's not allowed, and you did too.
Okay.
So we'll remove that and we'll vote to go into closed session.
All right, so Ms. Ackerman, roll call on the original motion, please.
Mr. Storm? We're going into closed session.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Dr. Krebs?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes,
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mrs. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes. That passes 7-0. All right, so we are going to go into closed session. It is the last item on our agenda. And our next meeting is, we have a special meeting on Thursday.
27,
27.
27,
My
6
apologies.
PM.
Oh, that's right, because it says the 24th.
Change that.
All right. We are recessing
Can we
closed
stay
session.
here?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't there a meeting after the bond meeting this next week?
What's happening?
It's on 13th, follow-up.
Yeah, that's
After
right.
the bond.
Right.
you said we're staying here.
We'll just shut that down. Hey, John, what is it? Oh, we are staying.
Take care, Jeff.